All right, what is up, y'all? My name is Paul C. Tijarina. I am a functional nutritional therapist. I am a lifestyle coach, which means I basically teach people how to sleep and how to meditate and how to get outdoors and a bunch of other cool lifestyle things. I'm also a master life coach. I've been coaching for about 10 years now. I've got thousands of hours under my belt, and I only say that so that you can feel like you can have some confidence in what we're going to talk about today. It's born out of experience and constantly researching this kind of stuff. Okay, so welcome, Natural Grocers audience. I've been here before. Absolutely love you guys, and I really appreciate this opportunity. And so today what we're going to be talking about is food quality, and specifically how that's going to impact your results. Now, I am with an organization called the SHT, which is not what it sounds like. It actually stands for SuperHuman Transformation. So it is a functional nutritional therapy and lifestyle coaching organization. And what we do is we clarify the confusion and we bring confidence to the people that we work with. And again, we're doing this for about 10 years now. We've got a lot of reviews, nothing but 5-star reviews. We work with a lot of people, so this is super solid info, okay? If you stick around to the end of this, I'm going to show you how to get a free PDF with all the notes of the things we talk about here today. And I'm going to give you some exclusive offers into some of the things that we have going on. So, all right, I always think it's great to start with connecting with why you're here. Why are we watching this? Why are we paying attention to this kind of stuff? And I think for most people, if we're honest about it, the reason that we're seeking health and we're trying to do these different things is because we either want some body composition changes or we want some improvements in health. Maybe you're working with some specific conditions and or symptoms, or maybe you just want to optimize health for the long term, all right? So regardless of your reason for being here, if we can kind of back out of that and try to understand what it is that we're trying to do that for, it's because we want to be happy. We want to live an amazing life. This is the only life that we have as far as we know it, and we want to make sure that we maximize it to the fullest. And so health is one of those things that contributes to that. Because when you find health, you find yourself. Those of us that have been on our own personal health journey already, and we've seen a bunch of great changes, we know that we just show up to life different. Life is better. Life situations may or may not change. Life difficulties are still going to come at you, but if you're healthier, if you're happy with how you feel and you have better energy levels, and your body composition is moving in a direction that you're happy with, then it just facilitates a better life, right? So we truly believe that health is the key to happiness, and you need education with the right information. You need some experience putting that education into practice, and then you also would benefit from the support of other people. And what that equates to over time, as you're doing this stuff and you're experiencing all the great changes you want to experience, is freedom, right? Freedom from not knowing what to do. Freedom from questioning what it is that you're supposed to do. Freedom from conventional wisdom's view of what you need to do to be healthy, right? There's so much that comes with this whole thing we call health and figuring that thing out, right? So I commend you for being here because this is so important. Now, when most people think about health and making some changes, they know that they got to do something fitness-based, and they know nutrition is a piece of it, but the frickin' nutrition's so confusing because we got everything from plant-based to carnivore and everything in between that it's like, I'm going to do all the working out that I can, and I'm going to do what I can with food. I'm going to try to figure it out to the best of my abilities. But what we would say is that it's a lot more than just food and fitness, and actually fitness is a small part of it, all right? All of these foundations that we teach over the course of working with us matter. The physical component, which includes the food and the fitness and the sleep, but also the mental and emotional component, which includes social connections and having a daily practice or a quiet time or meditation or devotion or something along those lines. And then also disconnecting and getting out in nature. We think all that stuff is important. So if we had to pick something that would give us the most bang for buck to focus on, because maybe we're not ready to embark on all those different things, food is going to give you the most bang for buck. It is 80%, if not more, of all the results that you're looking for. All right. So again, commend you for being here today. We're going to talk about some great stuff. So today what we're talking about is food quality. I've got an outline here, but we're just going to kind of fly through. I try to keep this to about 30 minutes so that we have a decent attention span and we don't want to exit out of here. So whatever you're doing right now, turn it off, pause it. Don't be tabbing over and texting and doing other stuff, because this is really, really good stuff. We've taken a lot of time to put this together, okay? So we're talking about food quality, how it impacts the results that you want. Like we mentioned before, most of us want some body composition changes and or we want some health improvement. A concept that I think is important and beneficial to understand in the beginning here is this concept of metabolic health. If you haven't heard of this, metabolic health, by the way, if you have good metabolic health, then the craziness that's happening right now, you're in a position to withstand and I was going to say durate, withstand this kind of craziness better than most people, okay? Metabolic health is going to allow you to survive and thrive in situations where other people can't, all right? Metabolic health is defined as the absence of metabolic syndrome, which means, in summary, having an ideal body composition, having normal blood pressure, having good blood sugar handling capacity, meaning not being pre-diabetic or diabetic, having, from a lipid panel standpoint, low triglycerides and a high HDL. Notice I didn't say anything about LDL in there. This would be metabolic health. And if you have good metabolic health, you're doing great for everything that you're looking for, your happiness, your health over time, and you're able to withstand a lot of these challenges that life is throwing at us. All right. Now, we've done a talk here with Natural Grocers before on a concept that we came up with called Nutritional Vitality, which is a way for us to assess foods in a way that moves us in the direction of metabolic health. And so nutritional vitality is basically assessing a food based on nutrients, on toxic level, and then also on how it contributes to metabolic efficiency. And I'm just going to breeze through this because we want to get to the quality piece of this. But in our world, in the SHT world, the purpose of eating food is to give the body nutrients and to facilitate energy being made in a certain way, an optimal way, which is basically teaching the body to be metabolically flexible. So if we're eating for nutrients, and by the way, when we eat for nutrients, we're eating to give the body what it needs to build the body, to contribute to the structure and form of the body, and to contribute to the functions of the body, right? That's the whole point of why we're eating. So if we're going to eat, we might as well eat the things that have the most nutrients that we can use. So that's why our first pillar of the nutritional vitality is, or piece of the pie, is nutrient sufficiency. Meaning, how does this food contribute to my nutrient sufficiency? This is how we come up with our definition of food. This is a picture of our big plates, which is not everything that we can consume, but this is our most nutrient-dense foods. And we believe that animal foods are a top priority. Now, if you don't resonate with that, do not tune out. Do not throw out the bacon grease with the bacon or the bacon with the bacon grease. Stick around because the concepts we're covering here today are relevant, okay? But anyway, this is our definition of food. This is the most nutrient-dense foods. This is what the majority of our meals are going to look like. You know, animal foods, using the appropriate fats, making sure you're ditching all those industrial processed, highly processed plant-based oils like canola and corn and soybean, and then also getting your vegetables and greens in, okay? The second pillar or piece of the pie here is minimal toxicity. So we also want to make sure that as we're eating things, as we're eating food and food products, that we have a minimal toxic load. So toxins, by definition, are going to damage cells and tissues and organ systems. They inhibit the assimilation and usage of nutrients, and they deplete nutrients through detoxification. This is why we call toxins toxins, because they damage us. They inhibit that nutrient process. And so this is how we come up with our foods to avoid. Okay, so we want to choose foods that have a lot of nutrients. We want to choose foods that have minimal toxic load. And then we also want to be aware of how that food contributes to metabolic efficiency. All right, so remember, we said the purpose of eating real food is to give the body nutrients, but also we want to make energy in a certain way. And ideally, we're training the body how to be metabolically flexible and fat burning. This contributes to, when we say metabolic flexibility, that means this ability to use both fat and glucose for fuel. Most of us do not need help teaching the body how to use glucose because glucose comes from sugar and starch, and most of us are probably eating plenty of that. And even if you're not, even if you're low carb or ketogenic, your body's always making glucose, so it understands how to use glucose. What the body needs is help in using fat for fuel. This is following an evolutionary template. This is the way we're meant to be. Once your body understands how to use your body fat for fuel, then meal timing and eating for energy become irrelevant. All right, you got this rechargeable energy source that's on your body all the time, and this ultimately leads to metabolic efficiency. And the reason I bring that up is because we have a strategy within our realm of real food, which is basically understanding that if we can get energy from carbs and we can get energy from fat, we need to understand that carbs are the opposite of fat. And if I'm trying to teach the body how to use fat for fuel, I just need to have some rules around my carbohydrates, right? We'd like to have carbs from real food sources versus processed sources like sweet potatoes and yams and fruit and honey. And we want to have them in smaller amounts, right? So that's our pitch on our way of doing things, but I think that sets us up really well for what we're going to talk about with quality. Now, in our search, our quest to become real foodies and to be as healthy as we possibly can, the first step towards being a real foodie is choosing things made with better ingredients, okay? Now, what we mean by that is we all come from the world of eating the wrong things, not knowing we were eating the wrong things probably, but eating a lot of processed foods. And so what we want to do as a first step, I think it's a great transitional step, is learn about the things that we can consume that may mimic those things that are toxic, but they're made with better ingredients. So those of us that have been in this holistic world, whether it's plant-based or whether it's paleo or Western A price or something along those lines, maybe even ketogenic, we understand that, hey, we can have potato chips. They just have to be made from real potatoes and cooked in a healthy fat like coconut oil. And we can have some ice cream as long as it's made with some wholesome ingredients, versus a lot of the horribly processed ice creams that are out there. So as we do this, the reason this is beneficial is because of the toxic load. All right. So as we choose things made with better ingredients, we reduce the toxic load, we reduce the damage to our tissues and organ systems, and we reduce this inhibition of assimilating nutrients properly. Okay. So that's the perfect first step, is moving from junk food to better junk food is really what it is. Junk food made with better ingredients. You're minimizing that toxic load, right? And so I think most of us, especially in our community, are very thankful to know that we have these options we can turn to. If I want to have a pizza night, or if I want to have a party and some salsa and some dipping chips, like I've got some options out there, okay? Now the second step in, again, becoming a real foodie and optimizing your real food nutrition is to choose real food over processed food, even if it's healthier processed food. So back to the spectrum, ideally the majority of what we're consuming is 100% fresh real food, or it can come from frozen, but things like the meats and traditional fats and vegetables and greens and a little bit of sweet potatoes and yams and rice and a little bit of fruit, but real food, fresh real food, right? That also includes things that are technically processed but still really, really good for you. Things like cheese is technically a processed food, and bottled and canned and jarred healthy fats, like those are technically processed, but they're not a problem because they actually contribute to health, okay? The majority of what we do, the magic happens when we move into this realm of 100% fresh real food, and we do these other, healthier processed foods very sparingly. Again, it's like an occasional thing. Maybe once a month we have a gluten-free pizza. Maybe, once every couple of weeks we'll have a taco night with some siete chips or some approved taco shells or something along those lines. All right? This is where the magic happens, because even foods made with good ingredients are not going to contribute to what our goals are. What are our goals? For most of us, it's body composition changes and or improved health. And so those better foods are not toxic. They're not the worst of the worst, but they're not going to contribute to these goals that we have. So we want to consume those sparingly. Then finally, eventually, we want to start to figure out how to strategize to make better quality upgrades. All right? I think this is a last step. We lose a lot of people if if I'm working with people, whether it's in my health coaching or in some group progressions or seminars, we lose a ton of people if we say, hey, everything you consume has to be 100% organic, grass-fed, free-range, something along those lines. It's so expensive. Most people just check out, like they can't do it. And I'm telling you right now, eating real food, even if it's conventional real food from wherever you shop, whether it's Winco or Walmart or Vons or Safeway, some of these maybe, lower end non-health food store chains, like if you eat real food, if you eat conventional beef and conventional broccoli and conventional lettuce and conventional fruit, and it's still so much better than eating processed food. Now, why does this matter? Because if, again, I'm on this quest of giving my body nutrients, minimizing my toxic load, which all contribute to the things that we want, then as I improve my quality, I'm increasing my nutritional value, and I'm also decreasing the toxic load, okay? So it's real food first, and then within real food, I start to strategize and plan for and find ways to improve my food quality. And it just so happens to be better for the planet, So let's talk about some prerequisite labels and definitions, and there's a million labels out there that we could talk about, but most of them are not standardized or widely recognized. But there's some things that I think might be helpful here. The first one is, what do we mean by conventionally? Conventionally grown. It basically means status quo, the way we've always done it, right? Which usually is not a good thing. So textbook definition, conventionally grown is an agricultural term referring to a method of growing and raising edible plants and animals. It is opposite to organic methods, which attempt to produce without synthetic chemicals or genetically modified organisms. Conventionally grown products often use fertilizers and pesticides, which allow for higher yield, out-of-season growth, greater resistance, greater longevity, and generally greater mass, but they're not good quality. So it could be superficial, right? So sometimes you can see a conventionally grown tomato in the grocery store next to some organic, and they look great, they look even better. But the reality is that that is almost a facade. Now again, a conventionally grown tomato is better than not eating tomatoes at all. It's better than eating a Pop-Tart. But if we're strategizing some quality upgrades, this is going to be deficient in nutrients compared to organic, and it's going to be higher in pesticides and herbicides and the things that we're trying to avoid. And we could say the same thing about animals. You know, animals conventionally grown, the meat looks great. Actually, sometimes it looks better, as better marbling, better things that make it taste better sometimes. But it also consumes conventional produce and feed, and it doesn't have the strict requirements, and so we're getting more toxins, we're getting more toxic load and less nutritional value. Okay, so another great label to understand, I think most of us have probably heard of this, is genetically modified, and looking for that non-GMO project verified symbol or something that touts itself as non-GMO. Now, there's some debate about whether GMOs are actually problematic for us or not, but as time goes on, I think more and more research comes in that shows that they are problematic. And I would rather, if I have a choice between, you know, a non-GMO product or a GMO that otherwise they're almost identical, I'm going to go with the non-GMO, just because I don't want to be an experiment. So here's a short little video on GMOs. Hopefully you can hear this, and if not, I'll provide a link for it.
First, what is a GMO? GMOs are organisms that have DNA or a genetic makeup that does not occur in nature. Most of the time, GMO crops are engineered to survive herbicide treatment or to produce their own pesticides. Some are engineered to resist certain diseases. In North America, over 70% of our packaged foods contain GMOs. So, if you're shopping to avoid GMOs, follow these tips. The USDA National Organic Standards prohibit the use of GMOs. Choose products that have been verified non-GMO by a third party, like the Non-GMO Project. The 5 most prevalent GMO crops of corn, canola, soy, cotton, and sugar beets end up as additives in all kinds of packaged foods, so read your labels carefully. Only 5 common produce items are currently grown commercially from GMO seed: corn, zucchini, yellow summer squash, Hawaiian papaya, and soybeans, otherwise known as edamame. Dry grains, beans, nuts, and seeds are usually non-GMO, but be wary of corn and soy products. Animals often eat GMO products as feed. If concerned, look for organic or non-GMO verified meat, dairy, eggs, and fish. Follow these 6 tips if you're shopping to avoid GMOs.
Cool. So basically, you know, you have these high-risk crops, and if you email me or message me, I will give you our handouts here on our definition of food and foods to avoid. So we have some strategies here for avoiding GMOs. So first of all, you're always going to avoid the following: canola, soy, unless there's some caveats here. You know, we're okay with some soy lecithin as an emulsifier, sugar beets, alfalfa, high fructose corn syrup. All right, we always recommend our people avoid those things. And then for these other things, we recommend getting organic or non-GMO verified, because maybe sometimes these things can be healthy, but they also have the potential to be GMO. All right, so corn, papaya, yellow summer squash, and zucchini. So if you buy organic, you're already avoiding GMOs. So that's a reason that organic can be a very, very useful label. I know that you know, some people in the holistic ancestral health world point out, you know, the imperfections of the organic label. But it is a step in a better direction, and it's one of the few widely accepted and understood labels that are out there. So let's just talk about what that means. Organic means avoidance of synthetical chemical inputs and irradiation and the use of sewage sludge, which means human for sewage, which means if you're eating conventional produce, you know, sometimes you could be eating human sewage somehow. I'm sure it's been cleaned and purified, but still, the idea that's kind of gross. Organic also means avoidance of GMOs. The use of farmland that's been free of prohibited chemical inputs for a number of years, usually 3 or more. For livestock, it's adhering to specific requirements for feed, housing, and breeding, which is usually better than conventional. Keeping detailed written production and sales records, maintaining strict physical separation of organic and non-certified products, and then undergoing periodic on-site inspections. Okay, so I think that that's a decent upgrade, right? What we're looking for when we shop in grocery stores, they have a few levels here. So if you see something that uses the organic label, that means that it's either 100% organic, that means everything in that product is organic, or it's 95% organic, meaning there may be some ingredients that are not organic, but at least they're non-GMO. If it says made with organic, that means at least 70% of the ingredients is certified organic. And if it says organic ingredients, that means some of the ingredients are organic, but there's not a majority or not a requirement for that. Okay, so just some things to be aware of. So obviously when you're choosing real food, it's either 100% or not, because it's one thing, right? So mainly we're talking about food products here when we get into these other versions of the label. So I think that's useful to understand. You can find that on the organic website, which by the way is very confusing and convoluted to find all kinds of different things, just like most government deals, but whatever. So then I think it's important too here at this point. So those are some label definitions. Okay, we got a couple more coming up. I think it's useful to talk about a species appropriate diet. Now, so now we're talking about animal consumption, and if we're improving the quality of what we eat from an animal perspective, we have to understand that animals are meant to eat certain things. This is what we mean by a species appropriate diet. Species appropriate diet means a way of eating that fits an animal's evolutionary past and associated developed digestive system. This should apply to all animals, including human beings. So if you want to know what a human being is supposed to eat, look at our evolutionary past, understand how the human digestive system works with an anatomy and physiology book, and it will tell you right there, okay? If we consume an animal that eats its species appropriate diet, it provides better nutrition, less toxicity, and it is potentially better for the planet. I think that makes sense. When an animal consumes what it is supposed to consume, then it makes a better animal, a healthier animal, a less diseased animal, a better nutritional animal. And that means if we eat animals that are eating a species appropriate diet, that's better for us, okay? And it's better for the planet and everything else that's involved. So I put a little chart here together of the main animals that most of us might consume if we're animal eaters. So cows are herbivores. They eat grass, herbs, and weeds. Chickens are, by the way, they're omnivores. They're not vegetarians. So if you see chicken eggs in the grocery store that say veg-fed, they're not vegetarians. They actually don't eat that much plants. If they have access to the outdoors and they're eating, you watch them and they're eating a lot of bugs and worms and animals, and they'll even eat animals. So, here we see greens, fruit, seeds, insects, worms, mice, frogs, and then they also eat dead animals. My wife's father has chickens and they'll eat just about anything. So pigs are omnivores. In the wild, pigs, and there's a lot of different versions and varieties of pigs, pigs will eat fruits, roots, tubers, insects, worms, fish, rodents, bird eggs, lizards, snakes, frogs, carrion, which is another animal, and basically pigs will eat just about anything as well, okay? So when it comes to fish and seafood, mackerel, sardine, anchovy, herring, they're carnivores. I don't know if many people know that. They eat mainly zooplankton and crustaceans. And then salmon are also carnivores. They eat insects, crustaceans, and other fish sometimes. So I think that's useful to understand and know. So when we say wild caught, that means that these animals are eating the things they're supposed to consume. And we say other things like, say, grass-fed. An herbivore is meant to eat grass and meant to eat herbs. And so when an herbivore eats what it's supposed to eat, it gets better nutrients, it's better for the animal's health, better for the environment, which means it's better for you. Another great label to understand in the animal world is pastured and pasture-raised. Not to be confused with pasteurized, because you can go to the grocery store and find pasteurized eggs, which is kind of crazy. But pastured or pasture-raised means that the animal is out in a pasture eating a traditional diet. If it's an herbivore, it has access to plants. If it's an omnivore, like a chicken, then it's out there eating bugs and grubs and things like that. Okay. So just a couple examples here. We see pasture-raised eggs. Vital Farms is a great company. We see here some pasture-raised beef, 100% grass-fed, 100% grass-finished. Okay. All right, and along the same lines as what we were talking about before with species-appropriate diet, the reason wild-caught is beneficial when it comes to seafood and fish is taken from the wild rather than bred from captive stock. Wild-caught fish are caught by fishermen in their natural habitat, and wild-caught fish feed on their natural diet and do not have antibiotics or as much pollution or contamination. All right. So I do want to reiterate the importance of choosing real food first without getting too caught up on the quality aspect. Okay. And I'm not saying that it's not important, but most of us need to focus on and make our priority eating fresh, clean food and seeing the results that come from that before we get too caught up in the quality piece. And then once you've seen the results that you want, once you're moving in a good direction, once you've made real food something that's a part of your life, then you can start to strategize and pick and choose the things that you want to upgrade your quality with, because it is going to be a little bit more expensive, maybe. I mean, depending on where you source things. All right, so always choose real food first. Do not let perfection be the enemy of doing the right thing. Do not let perfection of quality be the enemy of choosing real food first. All right, so let's just go through some spectrums that I put together here for different types of foods. We're going to start with the animal foods. So with beef, we've got this sliding scale. We would say that conventional beef is totally fine. It has a lot of nutritional value. The next step up from conventional beef is going to be organic, and the optimal is going to be grass-fed and finished. You may also see pasture raised, and you can ask questions to verify, if that's completely 100% grass-fed, grass-finished. But theoretically, ideally, that grass-fed, grass-finished is going to be most optimal. All right. Our next spectrum and sliding scale is going to be lamb, and lamb has an identical sliding scale, so conventional lamb, totally cool. Organic is going to be the next step up, and then grass-fed, grass-finished is going to be optimal. Now with lamb, most lamb I used to think was all grass-fed, but what we found out is that New Zealand and Australian lamb are definitely grass-fed. American lamb, it just depends, and that's where you need to ask some questions. So maybe as you're at the grocery store, at the butcher counter, you've got some access to some lamb, you can ask some questions. Is it American? Is it Australian? Is it New Zealand? Is it 100% grass-fed? If you care to know that info, because again, regular lamb is going to be awesome as well, okay? All right, our next sliding spectrum is going to be with pork. Pork acceptable is going to be conventional. Next step up is going to be organic, and then what's going to be optimal is pastured or wild. Okay, so remember, pigs are omnivores, and being out in the pasture and the outdoors and having access to all the things that they'd be rooting around trying to find is going to be optimal for their diet. All right. And then if we look at goats, I think goats are awesome. I don't know how many people out there eat goats, but I think goats taste great. And goats are actually browsers. They don't function like the cows as herbivores do. They actually eat everything. They eat weeds and leaves, shrubs and brush, and they do eat some grass. So they're actually really beneficial in regenerative agriculture. You've got the cows and the herbivores that eat the grass mainly, and then you got the goats that come in and eat the scrubs and the things that the cows won't eat. And then you rotate those things around. You got chickens that fall behind. So they're a really, really great, crucial piece of regenerating the soil. But anyway, so conventional goats are going to be awesome. And then the next step up from there is going to be organic. And then optimal is going to be organic pasture raised or pastured. Okay. So with those animal foods, there's a lot of places that you can buy stuff. I mean, obviously your local grocery store is great, but if you're looking to do some quality upgrades, if you can find some kind of a local co-op that sources meat from a place that does really good quality meat, like good quality beef and pork and maybe some goats and things like that, some lamb, that would be a great pick because it's relatively local and you're getting some better quality. If you're here in Las Vegas, we have access to the Vegas Food Co-op. If you're a part of our community, the SHT community, then we have a discount code. We have a really good relationship with them. We actually went up to their farm here recently and got to meet the farmers, the animals, and it was just so awesome. And we're paying on average, depending on what package you get with them, like $5 to $6 a pound for 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised pork. Like, it's really, really good stuff. Some other great places online that I've used, Force of Nature Meats. They have some great ancestral blends that blend in some organs, Bel Campo, White Oak Pastures, nosetotale.org. And there's probably some other places out there, but these are some of my top picks. So then let's move on to eggs and poultry. What's acceptable is going to be conventional, so just getting some eggs and chicken from just your normal grocery store is going to be totally fine. The next step up from that would be, especially in the egg category, omega-3. This means that the chickens are fed flax and some other things that enhance the omega-3 content, omega-3 fatty acid content of their yolks, which makes the yolks a little bit more nutritious. By the way, the yolks in the eggs is where all the nutrients are. The yolks are where the choline is and the fat-soluble nutrients and the things like omega-3s. So eat your whole egg, including the yolk, or just eat the yolk. A lot of times I throw the white away. But anyway, omega-3 is a step up, and then the next step up from that would be organic, and then the final level is going to be pasture-raised, right? This is when the chickens are out there able to eat worms and bugs and grubs and be in their natural habitat. Sometimes they're frog, who knows, you know? So again, when chickens are eating their normal diet, their natural diet, their species-appropriate diet, you're going to have a better chicken and you're going to have better eggs. And I think a lot of us out here on our holistic health journey that have tinkered with some pasture-raised egg or some local farm eggs from some people that we know can tell you, like, the yolk of a pasture-raised egg is like golden, almost orange, compared to a pale yellow of conventional eggs, and that tells you there's a lot more nutrition there. So if we could summarize all of the meat and poultry together, because what I'm envisioning is we're not going to memorize each one of these little spectrums, right? We're trying to go out to the grocery store, trying to keep in mind what we've learned here today. I do have some PDFs. If you email me or message me, I'll send those to you. If you join our community, even better, because they're inside our community. But if we just had to summarize the animal piece of it, minus the fish, then we would say, again, conventional animal foods are totally cool, right? It's a step in a better direction because it is real food, just like conventional produce is totally cool. The next step up at any level would be organic. The next step up, which would probably be optimal for most of us, the best that we could probably access, is going to be pastured or grass-fed. And then the ultimate would be wild hunted. And I don't think many of us venture into that. But so really what we have is these three levels: conventional, organic, pasture-raised, and grass-fed, right? So moving on to fish, there's some specific fish that we recommend people consume, and then you can venture into some of the larger fish. But there's fish that we recommend people consume because of their nutrient content. And we think that oily, cold water fish from remote, pollution-free waters are some of the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. Nothing comes close to the omega-3 content. Omega-3s are important because these are the EPA and DHA, the things that are really anti-inflammatory and great for brain health and protective. And all right, so the fish that we recommend that have the most nutrient content minus the toxins are going to be, we use this abbreviation called SMASH, and that stands for sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, and herring. Okay, so if we look at fish, best to acceptable sliding spectrum here, we've got acceptable. Believe it or not, we are okay with some domestic farm-raised fish if it's specific fish, and here we list out specifically shellfish, trout, catfish, and coho salmon, not any other version of salmon. All right, next step up would be wild caught, and then what's optimal would be wild caught smash, which would be wild caught sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, and herring. All right. So moving on to produce, the main toxins that we need to be aware of in any situation are going to be the herbicides, pesticides, irradiation, hormones, antibiotics, which apply more to the livestock than the produce that we're going to talk about here. And then GMOs and GEOs. We've already talked about the GMO way to shop for those and be smart about avoiding those. So let's just look at the sliding spectrum for produce. What's acceptable? Again, acceptable is conventional produce, totally fine. The next step up that most of us have access to is going to be organic. What would be optimal would be locally grown, whether it's locally grown certified organic or just locally grown. We think that that's going to be better than organic in any situation. And incredible would be wild, but most of us probably don't have access to wild produce. So now a great way to strategize your organic purchases in the produce realm would be using the EWG's Guide to Pesticide and Produce. So every year, the EWG stands for Environmental Working Group, and they have a great mission. Basically, these people go out and they test foods, they test over-the-counter beauty products, shampoos, lotions, detergents, soaps, and things like that for toxins. And when it comes to food, the herbicides and pesticides and the things we just mentioned. And so every year they come out with what they call their Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. And so the Dirty Dozen is the dirtiest produce that they test, the most popular produce. And so the closer it is to number one, the more dirty it is. So strawberries in 2021 were the dirtiest produce on the planet, which means that if you want to consume strawberries, it might be beneficial, even though we do say that conventional is totally fine. It's better to eat a strawberry than, Pop-Tart. But because they're so laden in pesticides and herbicides, you might want to consider going organic. Okay, so anything in this Dirty Dozen list means that it's at that top 12 of the most dirtiest pesticides and herbicides, and so you probably want to consider going organic. But what's cool is they also have on the flip side of that, the Clean 15. And the Clean 15 is the cleanest produce on the planet for this year at the time of testing. And so with the Clean 15, we've got avocados as number one, which means that if I'm at the grocery store and I want to buy some conventional avocados because they're on sale, that's totally cool. And so that applies to the Clean 15. And then if you have any produce that's in the middle that's not mentioned here, that means it's kind of gray area-ish, and it's totally up to you whether you decide to purchase organic or not. So we'll make sure to provide you with a resource so you can download your own current version of this, and every year they come out with a new version of it. All right. Now, remember why we went through this. Why is quality important? Because for the results that we're looking for, and for most of us that's going to be body composition changes and or some kind of health improvement, when we improve our quality in food, we improve the nutrients and we minimize the toxic load, okay? And we still have to be aware of the metabolic efficiency component, but that's why it's important to consider making quality upgrades. But again, I would say principle real food first. Once you get real food solid and you feel very comfortable with it, and you've seen a lot of great results, you can start to pick and choose your battles as far as how to upgrade your quality so that you can upgrade your nutrients and minimize your toxins. So finishing out, if you stick with me just for a couple more minutes, I can invite you to some free stuff and maybe join us because we have an awesome thing going with the SHT. First of all, to contact us, we have a phone number here. You can call, you can text, you can email us. We have our main website at superhumantransformation.com. You can follow us on social media, mainly Instagram and Facebook at Paul C. Tiarina and then Superhuman Transformation. But then also we have an amazing newsletter. So if you go to our website, superhumantransformation.com, you can download a free PDF that we just put out, which is Debunking Conventional Wisdom and the Status Quo with Truth-Based Solutions. It's a mind-blowing document. If you follow what's in this document, I mean, that in and of itself is going to give you a ton of information. It gives you things that you can actually put into practice. Also, the thing we're most proud about is our online community, which is community.superhumantransformation.com. This is our own social media platform, and in this platform, you know, we mentioned before, we think for you to achieve the results that you want, you need education with the right information, you need some kind of experience putting that information into practice, and then you would benefit from the support of other people. And so we have a community of amazing people here that grows every week. We can have conversations. We have our courses coming up in October. And even if you miss this, we'll have this recorded as a course. We have our October holiday preset instead of a reset because we're thinking about getting optimized for the month of October before the craziness of the holidays begins, because that's when a lot of us start to slide a little bit, right? So, but the way our online community works, we have a monthly theme. October is going to be the October holiday preset. And then every month has a theme. Within that month, we usually do 1 or 2 seminars. Those get recorded and put in as courses. And so we have a ton of courses that we keep adding to and updating all the time. We usually do new member highlights every week, and those are completely optional for the people joining us. We have a massive recipe index, which is really awesome, and everyone contributes to it. We have motivational posts that people post. We have usually a couple times a week questions and polls to get people engaged and talking to each other, which is really great for the dynamic component. And we really love this place. So if you visit community.superhumantransformation.com, I'll try to make sure that I provide a special link for you guys. Then we're going to give you a free trial so you can get in there and poke around and maybe join us for this October preset. And even if you miss it, you watch this after October, you can still get in there and go through the course because it's going to be really, really awesome, okay? So thank you so much for your time today. If you guys got any questions, comments, feedback, or snide remarks, you can send it our way. And remember, keep it real. That's the most important thing. And then you can start doing things like organic and pasture raised and grass fed. All right? Later, y'all.